The Maverick Mindset podcast was conceived from my hunger for personal growth. By inviting guests onto the show that exhibit all the traits of a true maverick, such as resilience, courage, success, failure, and purpose, I get to hear their unique entrepreneurial life journeys and share with you, my listeners, key learnings, advice, and perspectives that we can all apply to our lives. My guest today is the serial entrepreneur, Avi Lasarow. He's a healthcare specialist, business leader, as well as an angel investor. He's recently been CEO of a company called Prenetics, which is a NASDAQ-listed business that specializes in healthcare and genetics. Now, among many things on the podcast, we discuss the significance of integrity and how that reflects on you as an individual and your business. Avi also highlights why we need to tap into our creativity as entrepreneurs and how being creative positively impacts both business and personal growth. We also talk about the value of your energy and time and how to master both of these elusive skills, something many of us do struggle with. So now, without further ado, it's my pleasure to bring you Avi Lasarow.
So it's great to have you on the Maverick Mindsets podcast, Avi. Real privilege for me today to spend some time with you. And what fascinates me about you is that you're always a man of momentum. You're always generating and doing something new, and your mind is incredibly active. And I think that is something that inspires me when I meet people like you.
Thank you.
And I guess to start with, it's almost like you've had some very successful business ventures, you've done some exits, and how do you view moving on to something new and the next step in like an entrepreneurial decision or a business?
So first of all, Rick, great to have the conversation and share with you some of these thoughts. I mean, first of all, as an entrepreneur, I always used to feel an urgency with absolutely everything that I did on a daily basis. So what that meant is if I had an idea or I saw an idea, I wanted to be able to execute quite quickly in case somebody else did it first or did it better, right? And so the first thing that comes to mind is what I've realized over the last 2-3 years, especially the last 2-3 years, is actually many people have the same idea, but it's actually how you execute the idea that is determining whether it's going to be successful or not. Sure. Right? So I've lost that fear completely. Let me try and answer your question. Actually, I forgot what the question was.
If you're looking at a new business decision today or a new idea, or do you look at it from a point of view of it's a great idea and I can make this work, or does it personally inspire me? You must want something inside that gets the fire going for you, the desire to do it.
No, definitely. So when it comes to my own ideas, which you see ideas all the time and how you can do things differently or how you can solve problems. I mean, obviously, you want to find something that means or matters to you to be able to execute on it. So, for example, the reason why I've been so involved in healthcare for the last 20 years of my life is because healthcare makes a fundamental difference, right? And I've been through health type issues. My family have been through those sorts of issues, and I'm always looking to try and contribute something back to that sector. Yeah. However, for example, recently I've been working on more of a creative project, and that has relevance to something that's passionate for me. So I'm focusing on that because I want to grow it and do it and see if it can be successful, right? But saying that, I mean, also being an entrepreneur is about problem solving, right? So for example, I'm looking at something, for the next 12 months that might not even be related to health, but it's about solving a problem. Yeah. And if I see a way I could fix the problem, then it becomes interesting, right?
And how do you, from a mindset point of view, deal with the ups and downs and daily challenges of being an entrepreneur? Because I've been spoken to a lot of entrepreneurs. We all have different ways of dealing with pressure, but I'm just very interested because you're such a live wire. How do you manage your mental approach?
It's interesting. If I look back at myself over the last 20 years, I've had huge amounts of energy and I've had huge amounts of ups and downs. And as I've got older, I start to now focus on encapsulating that energy and applying it in the right direction. But what I also realize is that, I can't be doing everything all of the time. And I don't have the same amount of energy I used to have. So how do I,
especially with kids?
Especially with kids, yeah. And I have 5, right? So,
yeah, 5 kids.
So yeah, and 3 under the age of 6. So definitely that key point. And so I have to be able to have the time that I have available to be used more effectively when I've got that time and when I have that energy, right? So I think the key thing there is, and not everybody has the ability to do this because it does take money, but having the right team of people working with you and alongside you. So, one, I have the most amazing personal assistant who's worked with me for the last 8 years.
And you've always said how valuable a good PA is.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, I had my team at the time had to convince me to get a PA, and I thought, someone doing my emails or someone handling various things for me. I just found it very difficult to learn how to work with. And what I have learned how to work with is someone who's been brilliant and it shadows me in every aspect of my life, which gives me ultimately more energy to do the things that really make a big difference.
Focus on what you're good at.
Yeah, exactly. So, whether you have a full-time personal assistant or an outsourced service, I always recommend that's important to get time back and energy back. So you can focus on the things that will drive your idea. And then secondly, are you able to, or have you worked with a team who trust you, have seen you execute, and you can bring back into your new ideas to do it again? Sure. And I think that's really important as well, right? So, I've been helping a business recently just as a friend, and I've managed to find some key resources that used to work with me to help my friend do better by bringing those resources into their business and that sort of thing, right? So, surround yourself with great people, I think, is the key.
Yeah,
cliche, but true.
But it's a skill, right? And as we go through our own journey, we tend to get better at that, I think.
Yeah, and just one of the things we were speaking about earlier on, actually, which really matters, and as an entrepreneur, it took me some time to learn how to do, which is not to micromanage everything. Because as an entrepreneur, traditionally, for myself at least, I found that I'd always try micromanage without even realizing it, because you think your way is always the right way and you're going to have the detail because it really matters, where others might not. But so the key, I think, there is that I learned, again, over the last 3-4 years, is to actually give the person you're working with a mandate on what you want to achieve and let that person go and achieve it in their way. They might get there in a different way, but so the right person will definitely get there. Yeah. And that way you're removing the total detailed ownership of your need from yourself and giving it to someone who's really good to go and deliver.
And if they're not the right person, that's a definite way of finding out quick.
Yeah, exactly. So you'll find that very quickly. If that person is given a mandate and doesn't deliver the mandate, you'll know very quickly it's the wrong person and you should change that person quite quickly. But if you've got a team of 2-3 people of which you give a mandate to go and deliver something and they do, then they take ownership responsibility and you are just applying the energy to the vision of what you want to achieve as opposed to the detail of what you need to achieve. If that makes sense, right? So,
and how something that we all have to face up to is failure, because a lot of people talk about success, but yourself in business, it's a constant string of failures that you've got to be able to manage. What's your thoughts on failure?
Look, I think a lot of people would say, the cliche, fail fast, and then you can pick up the new thing. But actually, it's kind of true, but it is also very much a cliche. I think my thoughts on failure are that failure actually gives you scars and wounds and understanding and detail of a process or a business or something not to do in a way which you wouldn't have had if you didn't get the failure. Yeah. So what you should then do, if I try apply it to the concept of giving an individual a mandate and they don't deliver, then you've obviously picked up on someone you've hired who hasn't been able to deliver. So you failed in finding that person, right? And if you could almost learn from that and what not to hire the next time, in that example, then actually you've benefited, right? So if you're going to fail on an idea or a business or a concept or something you're creating, I think you just need to learn from your mistakes and then take those mistakes into your next idea to make sure they don't happen again.
Which is really valuable, because I think I read somewhere a long time ago, and I think it's very true, is what the world does, it sends you around the same loop again if you continue to make the same mistakes. So a lot of people who don't want to learn from failure will go on to continue that same cycle. So it's really important to learn and cut loose and move forward from it.
Yeah, and I think, as you quite rightly say, you can apply that even to personal relationships, right? Whether it's friends or girlfriends or partners. They say often that, individuals maybe for a while they date the same sort of person and they get into the same issues in their relationship. And if you don't change that, then you'll never obviously overcome some of those issues. It's a personal growth thing or relationship example, but actually it's the same in business. I think if you pick up on issues and you don't learn from them, you're going to keep on facing them. So,
And obviously you're very, very busy. You've always got tons going on. You've got a young family, you've got businesses, and you're driving on for the next thing. What are some of your daily, let's say, rituals or habits that get you in the right frame of mind or get you efficient and effective?
Yeah, so I mean, I think we had a conversation during the pandemic. I think we did something at one of the sort of member clubs. We did an interview, Then my schedule was very different to what it is today.
Yeah.
So the last 12 months, I actually had the privilege to be able to, go away once a month and, sort of have some time to recuperate and re-energize. And, now the way I approach business and life is very different to what I did 3 years ago, right? For me, I think you have to have, personal health issues in terms of health goals. I try exercise. I do try eat well if I can.
Yep.
I'm very mindful of that. And I actually try and take time out. So, what I learned in that year of re-energizing, where I was privileged to take a week, break almost every month.
Yep.
I think if you could do that on a weekly basis, you could, we're discussing earlier, whether you have a Friday off or whether you try and don't work as hard, but work smarter. It sounds again cliche, but it is true. It makes a difference. And what you find, if you have these regular breaks, you actually come back re-energized. So when I was, quite openly, when I was working, previously in my historical role, Prenetics, I was the CEO of a 700-man company, and I always felt that I didn't take paternity leave, for 3 children. I had to think 1 day off and I just work because the business needed me. But actually, even though you felt that was the service you were doing to the vision and the mission of the business, if I look back at it, I probably did myself and I did my family and I did the business a dissatisfaction. So, I think these times that you need to do to take off that gives back to yourself and your family is equally as important as the hard work you put into the business, because they work hand in hand, right? You have that break, you come back clearer minded, you come back re-energized,
Sure.
You put that back into your business.
And we've talked before as well. I mean, I spent a week with the family, with Vicky's family and the kids in Germany, and because that's the only downtime in our business we really get between Christmas and New Year, I just had time to open my mind and think without the interruptions of day-to-day business, and that itself gives you the ability to kind of decompress and thaw out and start to think things through, which we have limited time when we're very busy as individuals.
Yeah, so my view, again, just on reflection, especially over the last year, is what makes an entrepreneur really successful. One of the key attributes is having the creative ability to create solutions for problems, to create ideas, to create new ways of getting to market, new ideas, innovation, concepts, how to think of things outside the box.
Yeah.
And all that is linked to creativity, in my view, or a lot of it's anchored in creativity. And to do that, you've got to have energy. And to have the energy, you have to be rested. It's, and however you get that mental rest, physical rest, I think is important, whether it's through exercise, whether it's through, time out at the cinema, whatever, with friends, switching off your phone, I think that's important. And I think that's what you have to encapsulate as a key ingredient to being successful.
And in business today, because the way that, the world is moving, very tech-based, there's this whole thrust now towards artificial intelligence and how that's going to completely redefine industries or even how we all live and communicate. What do you think some of the biggest challenges facing us from a business point of view? And that can be anything from government legislation or right through to technology. But what do you think are some of the key things that are floating about?
I think the AI conversation is a big one, right? I mean, most of us have used ChatGPT. We can see how ChatGPT, for example, is replacing some basic stuff that you'd have to get someone to do for you, maybe historically, right?
Yep.
So I think there's a fear, but also an excitement that AI will actually definitely start to deliver a whole sort of evolution of how we do business. I think I saw that Sam Altman, I think yesterday was saying, if you saw that, he was saying that he's got a tech group of CEOs. I guess it might be Mark Zuckerberg and Musk and these guys. And they were actually betting that there will be, through the use of AI, the first $1 billion company run by one man, which is quite a scary thought if you think about it, right? So they'll use AI to do all the needs of a $1 billion company, and that's what they're betting will happen. And if they bet in it, I can tell you, I'm sure it will happen, because it's about having the vision to see it happen in the first place. And these guys are embedded in the whole ecosystem of tech development, right? Yeah. And I think the fear for me is, in fact, I was thinking about this yesterday. So, I'm looking at different sectors, different potential business ideas. And one of the inherent fears I have is if I'm not up to date with AI and how I would apply it to my new idea moving forward, actually will be at a complete disadvantage to make something happen anyway. Yeah. So in fact, if you're not thinking about AI today, incorporating that into your business, even yourself, Rick, in your current business, how are you going to integrate AI and its capability? You're going to be left behind. As you know, I work with DNA testing for athletes for nutrition and fitness. And my mantra then was, if you're an athlete and you haven't done your DNA test to work out how you should be exercising to get the best outcomes, you're going to actually be flanked by the people that are doing that, because they're going to be getting the best outcomes based on their DNA. So if you look at the concept of artificial intelligence in business today, if you don't get DNA of artificial intelligence involved in your business is going to be left behind. No doubt. And I think that's the reality. So.
And what do you think defines you as a person?
Integrity.
Really?
Definitely. I think integrity is really important. I think that, when you build in relationships, which business is based on, following through with what you say you're going to do, being able to do what you believe you can do and make sure it happens and deliver for customers, people, staff, friends, that's all based on integrity. You've got to have that.
And what's your greatest skill in business?
You said really like you were surprised there.
No, I just think that integrity would be all about trust and all about someone wanting to do business with you. And once you've lost it, you'll never get it back.
Yeah, you never get it back, exactly. Your name and your reputation is super important, of course. Integrity is important. In terms of other skills, it's about the ability to execute. I think super important. We'll just take a break. If you go straight then to the right where the car is, there's a car park just there in the wall. So obviously integrity is super important. Ability to execute, ability to see things and follow your intuition. I think we were talking earlier on that, as you get wiser and deeper and more experienced in business, something you learn to trust without a doubt is your intuition.
Yeah.
And I think that's a skill set that's not just there on day one. It's built over time and honed over time, and you just got to trust it more and more. If you pop maybe one of these here, you can see a place maybe just behind that, next to the white van there.
Just for those of you listening, we're just stopping for a sandwich and a coffee. So Avi's just directing me. He's truly multitasking. So Avi, tell me, what do you think your biggest skill set is in business?
Good question. I think having a skill set to see an idea and actually make it happen is important. Emotionally, pursuing things that aren't right, can drain you quite a lot, I think, right? And I think that identifying instinctively, I think, what is the right thing to do versus not is really important, right? So I want to say, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So I must say it's the greatest skill. I think doing business is a combination of skills. I think emotional intelligence is super important as well, right? So it's meeting somebody and being able to essentially, smell nonsense versus no nonsense quite quickly and decipher that quite quickly. Because earlier on we were speaking about having energy for creativity and so on. And the more time you waste with people that are wasting your time, the quicker you're going to deplete your energy, right? Yeah. So being able to sniff that out quite quickly is quite a skill. And I think if you can hone that one too, then you set up for success. Well, part of your setting up for success is one of those skills, right?
And I guess it's like those energy vampires, that they're in all aspects of our lives, isn't it? It's having the discipline to walk away from stuff and also learning to say no. Very difficult for entrepreneurs because we all like shiny, new, exciting things, don't we?
Yeah, so just honing on the energy vampire thought, right? We used to have a member of our team, or there used to be somebody in our office that would essentially, every single time the person came and engaged with you, I would feel almost exhausted or wanting the conversation to end. Like really, no matter how good they were, it was just something about that conversation or something about the engagement on a deeper level that just exhausted me, And I kid you not, Rick, even today, if I see the individual post or something, I feel tired when I look at it, it just really drains me. So I've learned that you have to eliminate that wherever you can. People are people, right? And ultimately, how you as a manager bring the best out of people is important. You've got to accept that not everyone has the same skills you have, or other people might be better than you. How do you bring that to become effective? But actually, people that exhaust you, you want to ring fence yourself from, for sure.
No, good point. And if you look today, you'd have met a lot of people in your business life for sure, but is there, who do you admire mainly? Was there someone out there that you constantly kind of reference and say that person gets it right continually? Or
so you could actually have the business figures that you idolize and you think, wow, they're so creative, whether it's the Steve Jobs or the Elon Musks or the Bill Gates or South African business equivalents, because I'm South African, I have to throw that in, right? But actually, one in my last 10 years of doing business, as we grew Prenetics in the UK to more than 700 people, I had to bring in a number of consultants. And one of the expressions that I hear is that, consultants tend to sometimes, it's a big generalization, they borrow your watch and tell you the time, right? They listen to what you do, they spin it out in a different way, and they present it in a different way, but they're telling you the same thing. Yeah. And by the way, there was a big lesson I learned from that, which was I had these consultants that were, in most cases, better educated than me.
Yep.
They were better experienced in managing larger companies. Bear in mind, at this point, we were managing 700 people working for me. And because of that, I felt almost that they were the authority in some of the thinking, because actually they had the most experience and had gone through the education that gave them the methodology and the deeper understanding and all that stuff that you would assume comes with being a top-notch corporate manager, right?
Yeah.
But actually what I realized, and I proved it to myself in the process, that many times I had an instinct, and some of the leadership team that I had around me, consultants and corporate bigwigs, influenced my decision from where I wanted to be, only to discover later that actually if I followed my decision, it would have been right. And it's weird because you think running a $150 million company, you're full of confidence, but when you bring these people into the room, it can be quite intimidating.
Yeah.
And actually what I realized through the process of learning that my instinct would have been the right one, no matter who was in the room, is it gave me a confidence to believe in myself even further, no matter who is around me.
Yeah.
Right, so that's one thing to say. But to answer your question, I did have one consultant who actually, people called us a yin and yang. He was very corporate in his thinking, very risk averse, very matter of fact, very pull me down to the ground. And he's someone actually I would say who I look up to, even though he's not a super entrepreneur that's essentially created and sold businesses. He's somebody that really understands business mechanics, how to operate and how to move fast and do the right commercial things and evaluate risk and do those things, right? And his name's Richard Jones. And he was brilliant, and I still speak to him today, and I still listen to him, and don't always agree, by the way, and I don't let his conversations, change my course of direction. But what I do is I take him very seriously, and I evaluate whatever he says, and I take it not with a pinch of salt, but I take it as a real consideration to decision making that I'm undertaking to do.
And just on that point, you talked about self-belief, etc., and trusting your own instinct. I think it's quite easy to be blown off course by lots of people who come along and tell you they can do it better. And we've all employed people that can screw your business up to some extent, and you have to give them the leeway to do it initially, because you don't know till you've gone too far down the road. But you do have to open that trust, and it links back to what we were saying earlier about failure. Failure is part of that journey, but if you learn and grow from it, and your instincts do get stronger from experience, for sure. And it's having the conviction, I guess, to go with them. Yeah, not always easy to do when you've got lots of influential people telling you this, that, and the other.
Yeah, I mean, you have to give up control to get the best out of people. And if you can do that successfully, then actually you're in a much better position, because the people around you who've got control hopefully are looking after your interests, hopefully are incentivized for their own interests so that they look after your interests. And ultimately, it gives you more freedom to be creative and make more decisions and, pull relationships and business opportunities together, right?
And obviously, there'll be a lot of people listening to this podcast who want to start out an entrepreneurial journey. What advice would you give someone wanting to set up on their own today?
ChatGPT.
AI.
Well, look, again, I think in today's world, from where I'm sitting, there are different ways to set up businesses. And, you've got your traditional businesses that you could create an idea, you could, whether it's in retail, whether it's a software as a service, whether it's a product, and you can bring that to market. And now you also have, other business ideas that are coming to fruition that you might never have thought were even possible 10 years ago, and all making success possible through social media, which are essentially now channels and brand channels that never existed before, right? So, I mean, the first thing I would say is if I was looking to set up a new business, I'd make sure that whatever it is, I can sell it electronically. It's e-commerce related, because e-commerce usually means you can scale things in a way that traditionally can't be scaled because not e-commerce, i.e. retail or, a brand that's offline. So advice would be find something that's electronic, digital, and that you can execute on a digital platform.
Excellent. And obviously, you're a deep thinker. You've got some air under the wings now in terms of your career. What ambitions do you hold now? The next phase, if you like.
So first of all, I'm also, as you know, South Africa's Honorary Consul in the UK. So I'm a diplomat for South Africa. a non-career diplomat. I've been for 12 years. And what I see is definitely an opportunity to do more for South Africa.
Yeah.
I think it's a time where, I have the privilege to be able to not be dependent on a salary. So I can therefore think creatively about how I can do things between, say, South Africa and the UK. So, for example, I have a growing interest in this whole net zero concept and, creating, solar panels and not solar panels, but sort of lithium-ion batteries and where it all comes from, how it's all made. And the world, as electronic vehicles are becoming in greater demand, has a huge need now for lithium-ion technology or sodium-ion technology to support the growth of that industry. And similarly in South Africa, where I'm from, there's been issues with power and electricity. And so I'm always thinking, well, how can you solve that problem? And I know now that between the UK and South Africa, there's a need to collaborate on those sorts of things, right? So, so in terms of the next part of my career, I'd like to do something between South Africa and the UK. If I can utilize my Honorary Consul position by opening doors in Africa, where I think there's going to be an emerging market opportunity for new business.
Sure.
And that's where I think the place is to play.
And obviously, in terms of Africa itself, it's a huge continent and very, very untapped. And I guess very unstructured in some parts from a business point of view, which gives lots of opportunity.
No, definitely. So I can give you an example. One of the big projects I've been working on, in fact, for the last 5 years, which is getting some momentum, is when medicines are made, they are made and tested traditionally on European individuals, white Europeans, right? So what that means is the efficacy of that medicine that suits a white European isn't necessarily suitable for a black South African, for example, or black African. So there's a huge need to diversify data around drug development. And so we have a database that we've been building in South Africa called Everyone Genome, where we're working with pharma companies to get the right data sets to contribute to better drug development for all.
And, on the kind of AI conversation, there must be huge advances coming through with that kind of technology in your days with kind of DNA and genetics testing, where they can take all that data and number crunch it very, very effectively.
Yeah, no, definitely. So, for example, AI in healthcare is a huge thing, right? So certainly for drug discovery, finding new drug targets, but even in the basics of, X-rays, for example, or scanning of, body parts and identifying even histopathology, right? Looking at histopathology slides and understanding what they mean. I think, it's just right here, Rick, sorry. For example, there's a company that's South African, coincidentally, that's launched in the UK called Envision AI. And what they do is they basically help radiologists by looking at data sets of many, many radiology scans, understand the decision-making process better. So it helps them get to the decision quicker or validates the decision on what they see on an X-ray. So for example, we speak of AI generally, but AI in healthcare, that's just a very basic example of how it's going to transform healthcare on a daily basis, right? And all it's going to have a impact on cost savings to government, cost savings to countries, actually better accuracy and better care as a result, right? So,
how do you spend your downtime? Obviously, with a busy life and kids and whatever, what do you do to kind of zone out?
So it's big for me in the last year as I've been running. So, trying to get into half marathons and I try every week to do at least 10, 20 Ks. And that's been really good. I find that
And you're running around here? And then...
Yeah, sure, I run. So firstly, whatever country I go to, I travel a lot, right? So whatever country I go to, I take a pair of trainers and I can run, and I use it as a way to just essentially zone into the country when I get there after jet lag. I find running's been really helpful. In fact, when I don't run, I feel I get a bit irritable. But really, I live for my children more than anything. So I try to spend as much time with them as frequent as I can, because they're not going to be young forever, and these are important moments. And I was saying earlier before that, yes, you have to make sacrifices, there's no doubt about it. But I think making sure that you continue to build on the bonds of your children and your family is equally as important and remunerating as business. And it's easy to say if you don't have money coming in, and you have to have the money coming in to survive, to do that happily and peacefully. But the reality is the one kind of contributes to the other, because the more time you spend with your family, the more you want to be successful, and the more you are successful, the more you also want to balance it back out with your family to let them enjoy the success of your hard work, right?
What's a great book you've read that really inspired you?
It's a hard one, right? To be honest, I'm not a huge reader. I listen to a lot of podcasts, for example. That's where I spend a lot of my extra time. I usually pick books up, start and stop them. Don't really follow through on them, to be honest. I read a lot of newspapers, a lot of daily news, but podcasts I think is where I get information from, right? So,
and do you have certain ones you subscribe to, you go back to?
Yeah, so right now I'm listening to a political podcast regularly with Alistair Campbell and Rory Stewart, exactly.
It's quite good, isn't it?
Really, really good. Yeah. So I listen to that. In fact, I listen to when I run a lot, actually. And so that's great. The rest is politics.
That's it.
Yeah, really.
I like Rory Stewart.
Yeah, me too.
Very, very clever guy.
Yeah, it's good also seeing, obviously, ex-communication minister for Labour interacting with a former Conservative minister who had different views, very deep views, and ex-Harvard professor, actually. But that sort of stuff in podcasts is where I get the information from. Sometimes I read, but I can't say to you, that's a book I would suggest, and you should go read that book, because I would be telling you this truth.
Well, we're just pulling into your beautiful home. Avi, it's been a real pleasure, actually. We've covered some topics. There'd be loads more we could do, but we're out of time.
No problem. Great.
I really, really do appreciate your time. You are a true maverick, and you're an inspiration for me. And I will take the key takeaway for me really is creativity, because I said to you before, I always think of myself as more kind of business or traditional focused, but actually all of us entrepreneurs are creative.
Yeah.
And you need to take the time out to keep your mind sharp so you can create. And that is the definition of the ultimate success, I guess.
Definitely. Thanks for the privilege to have the conversation, and hopefully it was useful and gives insights onto.
Right. Brilliant.
Yeah.
Thanks, Avi. Thank you very much.
No worries.